private exchange between Xi Jinping and Donald Trump at the Zhongnai Leadership Compound reveals the deepest fault line in United States-China relations. When Xi directly asked Trump whether the United States would intervene militarily if China moved against Taiwan, he broke with decades of Chinese diplomatic discipline. A Chinese leader does not normally expose uncertainty on a core sovereignty issue. However, Xi asked anyway. Trump's response, "I don't want to say. There's only one person that knows that. You know who it is. It's me," was not simply evasive. It was a deliberate assertion of personal unpredictability, denying Xi the clarity he urgently sought. This moment captured the widening gap between China's political ambitions and its actual strategic readiness. Trump noted that Xi Jinping brought up historical United States commitments to Taiwan, such as the 1982 Six Assurances and the Taiwan Relations Act. Trump told reporters that rather than relying strictly on past text, he chose to address Xi directly but kept his exact military playbook entirely secret. Xi's question was not driven by curiosity, but by strategic anxiety. Before taking power, he reportedly told internal party cadres that Taiwan must be unified within roughly 15 years, a timeline that would fall squarely within his leadership era. Now, as he approaches a fourth term, he is in year 13 of that self-imposed window. Yet unification remains distant. This gap between promise and reality threatens the ideological narrative he built around national rejuvenation. In a Leninist system where legitimacy is tied to delivering historic missions, failing to achieve unification becomes a political liability. She knows that internal rivals, though silent, are watching. But the pressure does not come only from within the CCP. For decades, the Chinese public has been exposed to a steady stream of state propaganda, insisting that Taiwan is an inseparable part of China, and that unification is both inevitable and historically mandated. Many citizens genuinely believe this narrative. As a result, if Xi fails to deliver unification within the 15-year window he implicitly set, the disappointment will not be limited to party elites, it will extend to the broader population. A leader who has cultivated a nationalist identity cannot easily retreat from a promise that millions of people have been conditioned to expect. This creates a second layer of pressure, the risk that failing on Taiwan weakens Xi's image not only inside the CCP, but also among the very public whose nationalism he helped inflame. Compounding this pressure is the state of the People's Liberation Army. Xi's sweeping purges, especially within the Rocket Force and the Central Military Commission, have gutted the very institutions responsible for planning and executing a Taiwan campaign. Senior commanders disappeared, procurement chiefs were removed, and entire chains of command were disrupted. The PLA today faces a leadership vacuum, operational paralysis, and a climate of fear. No military can prepare for the most complex amphibious operation in modern history under such conditions. Xi's political timeline is accelerating, but his military timeline is collapsing. This contradiction fuels his unease, and explains why he pressed Trump again, despite already hearing extreme private threats years earlier. China's economic downturn deepens the crisis. Years of slowing growth, demographic decline, collapsing property markets, shrinking local revenues, and declining foreign investment have eroded the economic foundation that once underpinned CCP legitimacy. A weaker economy limits resources for military modernization and reduces Xi's ability to buy elite loyalty. It also raises the political cost of a failed military adventure. The worse the economy becomes, the more dangerous a Taiwan conflict would be, and the more Xi fears the consequences of delay. This is why he sought clarity from Trump. He needed to know whether the United States would block his narrowing window. Trump's public statements add another layer of complexity. In interviews, he has said he is not looking to travel 9,500 miles to fight a war and warned Taiwan not to go independent. These lines reflect political messaging aimed at voters, not a strategic concession to Beijing. Yet, Xi cannot ignore them. Trump's public reluctance contrasts sharply with his alleged private threat years earlier, that the United States would bomb Beijing if China invaded Taiwan. This duality, public restraint, private intimidation, makes Trump uniquely difficult for Xi to read. Hence the private question. She was not seeking information, he was probing for weakness, hesitation, or inconsistency. Trump gave him none. During the high-stakes summit in Beijing, Xi Jinping explicitly warned Trump that Taiwan was the most sensitive and dangerous issue between their nations. According to official accounts, Xi cautioned that if the matter were mishandled, the United States and China could have clashes and even conflicts, pushing the relationship toward a catastrophic collision. Xi's invocation of the Thucydides Trap added yet another layer to his message during the official meeting with Trump. Although he avoided aggressive rhetoric, the reference was unmistakable. Beijing increasingly believes that China is approaching the historical moment when a rising power collides with an established one. In Xi's framing, the United States is the dominant hegemon whose decline is inevitable, and China is the ascendant challenger whose rise cannot be stopped. Yet the irony is that this belief exposes Beijing's insecurity more than its confidence. The United States today remains overwhelmingly dominant, economically, militarily, technologically, scientifically, and even in high-end manufacturing. By hinting at the Thucydides trap, Xi was not signaling strength. He was revealing that Beijing fears the window for surpassing the United States is closing, not opening. This ambiguity feeds directly into China's urgency over Taiwan, which Xi sees as the symbolic gateway to national rejuvenation and great G power parity. This moment exposed the two faces of China's diplomatic dilemma. Outwardly, Beijing must project strength to its domestic audience and insist that Taiwan is a purely internal affair. Inwardly, Xi's warning revealed genuine vulnerability. A confident rising power does not need to warn of conflict. A pressured, uncertain one does. Xi's stark language was less a show of strength than an admission of how fragile his Taiwan timeline has become. Trump's additional remark, "I have to speak to the person that's running Taiwan," introduced a shock of a different kind. The United States has not changed its long-standing position of not recognizing Taiwan as an independent state. But Beijing fears something else entirely: direct, presidential-level communication between Washington and Taipei. Trump's phrasing implied a willingness to speak personally with Taiwan's democratically elected president, Lai Ching-te, something no United States president has done before. For Beijing, this is far more threatening than symbolic statements about independence. Direct dialogue elevates Taiwan's political legitimacy, strengthens trust between Washington and Taipei, and improves coordination on arms sales and defense planning. In Beijing's eyes, such contact erodes the narrative that Taiwan's status is a domestic affair and signals that Taiwan's leadership can engage the United States at the highest level without passing through China. This is precisely the scenario she fears most. The broader context reinforces the depth of distrust. Reports that the United States delegation discarded all Chinese-issued items, gifts, credentials, burner phones, before boarding Air Force One symbolized the collapse of diplomatic confidence. Washington treated every object as a potential surveillance tool. Beijing, in turn, interprets such behavior as confirmation that the United States views China not as a competitor, but as a systemic threat. In this climate, even symbolic gestures become strategic signals. The hidden conversation occurred against this backdrop of suspicion, making Xi's question even more revealing. As Xi's fourth term looms, the internal pressure within the CCP is mounting. If he enters another term without progress on Taiwan, his unification promise becomes a political burden. Elite dissatisfaction may grow, especially as the economy weakens, and the PLA remains unprepared. Xi's authority rests on the perception of inevitability, that he alone can deliver China's historic destiny. But Taiwan is the one objective he cannot achieve safely, and delay threatens his narrative. This is why he sought clarity from Trump. And this is why Trump's refusal, strategic ambiguity sharpened into personal unpredictability, struck at the heart of Xi's dilemma. For the United States, maintaining a firm, consistent position is essential. Not to destabilize China, but to deter miscalculation. A clear United States stance forces Beijing to postpone risky military options, buys Taiwan time to strengthen its defenses, and reduces the chance of a catastrophic conflict. In a world where Xi's political clock is ticking faster than his military can prepare, deterrence is not provocation, It is the only stabilizing force preventing a crisis. The private conversation revealed a leader under pressure and a superpower relationship defined by distrust. It also showed why the Taiwan Strait remains the most dangerous geopolitical fault line of our time.